Here's something that's going to sound wrong at first. You don't need motivation. You don't need more discipline. And you might want to stop settling and you might want to stop setting goals altogether. I know that sounds like the opposite of everything you've been told. Every self help book, every podcast, every guru on the internet is telling you to set bigger goals, build discipline, and find your motivation. But here's what I've noticed: the people who actually win, the people who build the life, the business, the body, whatever it is, they don't seem to need any of it. They're not grinding their teeth trying to stay disciplined. They're not watching motivational videos at 5 a.m. to get out of bed. They're not obsessing over their goals. They just move. Let's start about let's start with motivation because it's one of the most obvious ones. Think about motivation and what it actually is. It's a feeling, an emotion, a spike, something that makes you want to take action in the moment. You watch a video, you feel pumped, you're ready to change your life. By Thursday, it's gone. You need another video, another podcast, another hit. That's not strategy. That's an addiction. You're chasing emotional spikes to do things you've already decided you should do. Think about how backwards that is. You already know you should work out. You already know you should work on your business. You already know you should make the call, send the email, do the thing. You don't have an information problem. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a decision problem. And so here's the test. Do you need motivation to brush your teeth? Do you need to watch a video to convince yourself to shower? No, because those things aren't up for debate. They're just what you do, they're part of your identity. But the things you need motivation for, those are things those are things you haven't actually decided on yet. You're still negotiating with yourself, still leaving the back door open, still treating it like it's optional. And when something is optional, you'll always find a reason to opt out. The problem with motivation is that it lets you keep things optional. You get emotional high of feeling like you're going to do it without actually committing, without actually deciding. Motivation is a substitute for decision, and it's a bad one. Now, let's talk about discipline because this one is sneakier. Discipline sounds good. It sounds hard. It sounds like something successful people have and unsuccessful people lack. So we admire it, we chase it, we beat ourselves up for it, not having enough of it. But think about what discipline actually means. Discipline's forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. Read that again. You're using willpower to override your own resistance. You're fighting yourself every single day, and that's exhausting. It's not sustainable. Here's what nobody tells you: willpower is a finite resource, it depletes throughout the day. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every time you force yourself to do the thing you don't want to do, you're draining the tank. That's why you can be disciplined in the morning and fall apart by night. The tank is empty. You've been fighting yourself all day, and here's the real problem. If you need discipline to do something, it means your identity is in conflict with your actions. Part of you doesn't actually want to do it. Part of you doesn't actually believe you're the type of person who does that thing. So you're not just fighting laziness, you're fighting your own self concept. You're trying to act in ways that don't match who you believe you are. That's a war you'll lose eventually. You might win battles, you might have a few good days, good weeks, good months, but if your identity doesn't match your actions, your identity will win in the long run. It always does. The people who look disciplined from the outside, they're not fighting themselves. They've just decided the action matches the identity. There's no internal conflict. There's no resistance to overcome. They're not disciplined, they're aligned. Here's the one that's going to be the hardest to hear. Goals might be hurting you. I know. Goals are sacred. Everyone has goals. You're supposed to have goals. Write them down, review them daily, visualize them, make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. But let me ask you something. What is a goal really? A goal is a statement that you don't have something, it's a declaration of lack. It's you saying, I am here and I want to be there, which sounds reasonable, except for what it does to your brain. When you set a goal, you're defining yourself by the gap. Every time you think about your goal, you're reinforcing that you don't have it yet. You're focusing on the distance between where you are and where you want to be. And here's the thing about focus: whatever you focus on, you feel. Focus on lack and you feel lack. Focus on the gap and you feel behind. Focus on not being there yet and you feel like you're not there yet. That feeling becomes your state, and your state affects everything: how you show up, how you make decisions, how you carry yourself, whether you take action or procrastinate, whether you persist or quit. Goals put you in a state of wanting, not having. Wanting. And wanting is not the same as having. Wanting is the opposite of having. As long as you're wanting, you're confirming to yourself that you don't have it. There's another way. Instead of setting a goal, make a decision. Instead of saying, I want to be successful, decide, I am successful. The results just haven't caught up yet. Instead of saying, I want to be confident, decide, I am confident. The world just hasn't adjusted yet. This isn't delusion. This is identity. When you identify as a person who already has what you want, you stop chasing, you stop wanting, you stop existing in the gap. You start operating from the end and everything changes. So if motivation doesn't work, discipline is a trap and goals keep you stuck in lag. What's the answer? Identity. Everything flows from identity. Your actions flow from your identity. You do what matches you. You do what matches who you believe who you are. You avoid what doesn't match, not consciously, automatically. Your results flow from your actions, and your actions flow from your identity, which means your results are downstream of your identity. Change your identity, and your actions change without effort. Your results change without force. You don't need motivation because you're not fighting yourself. You don't need discipline because there's no internal resistance. You don't need goals because you're not focused on the gap. You're just being who you are, and who you are creates the life you have. Here's how this works practically. Step one: decide who you are, not who you want to be, not who you're working towards, who you are right now, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of evidence, regardless of what the world reflects back at you. This is the decision, not a process, not a journey, a decision. You don't become confident. You decide you're confident. You don't become successful. You decide you're successful. The external results are just a matter of time. Now, step two: act from that identity. Once you've decided who you are, ask yourself, what would that person do right now? Not what should I do to become that person? That keeps you in the gap. Instead, what would that person do? How would they handle this? How would they show up? And then do that. Not because you're disciplined, because that's who you are. Now, step three: let go of that timeline. This is where most people break. They decide, they act, and then they check for results. A week goes by, a month goes by, they don't see any evidence, start to doubt. Here's what you need to understand: the external world lags behind the internal shift, always. Your circumstances are a reflection of your old identity. It takes time for them to catch up to the new one. Your job is not to look for evidence. Your job is to remain in state, stay in the identity, keep operating from the end. The results will come. Not because of magic, because a person who consistently shows up as that identity will inevitably create those results. It's not a question of if, only a question of when. Now, here's why this feels hard. Everything in your life has trained you to look for external validation, to check the scoreboard, to measure progress, to need proof before you believe. You've been taught that believe comes after evidence. You see results, then you believe you can do it. You achieve the goal, then you feel successful. You get the validation, then you feel confident. That's backwards, and it's why most people stay stuck. The people who break through it, the people who break through do it the other way. They believe first. They decide first. They assume the identity before there's any proof, and then they let reality catch up. This feels arrogant. It feels delusional. It feels unsafe. Good. That discomfort is the price of entry. You're literally rewiring your self concept. You're overriding decades of conditioning. You're choosing to believe something your circumstances don't yet support. That's not comfortable, but it's how change actually happens. You don't get to feel certain and then decide. You decide and then certainty builds. You don't get to see the evidence and then believe. You believe and then the evidence appears. The willingness to be uncomfortable, to feel like you're pretending, to operate without proof. That's what separates the people who transform from the people who stay stuck. Let me make this practical. Because this can't just be philosophy, you need to be able to use this. Here's how to start. First, identify one area where you've been chasing motivation, forcing discipline, or obsessing over a goal. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's your business, maybe it's your confidence, maybe it's a relationship. Pick one. Second, ask yourself, who would I have to be for this to be effortless? Not what do I have to do, who do I have to be? What identity would make this natural? What self concept would make this automatic? If you're struggling to work out, maybe the identity is I'm an athlete. If you're struggling in business, maybe it's I'm someone who creates value. If you're struggling with confidence, maybe it's I'm someone who trusts themselves. Find the identity. Third, decide that's who you are right now. Now who you're becoming, now who you are, try it on. Say to yourself, I am an athlete. I am someone who creates value. I am someone who trusts themselves. It will feel weird. It might feel like you're lying. Do it anyway. That discomfort is the gap between your old identity and your new one. You're supposed to feel it. Fourth, for the next 7 days, act from that identity. Every decision, ask, what would that person do? And do that, not because you're motivated, not because you're disciplined, because that's who you are now. Don't check for results, don't check for evidence. Just stay in the identity. Fifth, notice what changes. After 7 days, look back. Did the actions feel easier? Did the resistance decrease? Did you show up differently? That's identity at work. That's what it feels when you stop fighting yourself. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You don't need more motivation. You don't need to stop needing motivation. You don't need more discipline. You need to stop fighting yourself. You don't need better goals. You need to stop living in the gap. What you need is to decide who you are and then be that person, not tomorrow, not when you have proof, not when you feel ready now. The external world will catch up, it always does, but it only catches up to people who've already moved internally, who've already shifted, who've already decided. Everyone else is still waiting, waiting for motivation, waiting for discipline to kick in, waiting until they hit their goals to feel like they've made it. They'll be waiting forever. You don't have to. Decide who you are, act from that, let go of the timeline, and watch what happens. Thank you very much.